I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. I want to share some things with you, and I want to ask you to just listen to me. I want to ask you for your time. I'm not asking you for any money. That you don't have to do. But I am going to ask you for something I think at this moment is more precious and more valuable than your money. I want your time. I have some things I want to say to you that are extremely important for you, for your well-being, and for the people that you love, and for the nation that you love. And I pray for the God whose name is Jesus that you also love. I want to ask you for your time. I want to talk to you about what I'm calling the great race business. Recently, the Florida Board of Education, which is a composite of both Hamite and Japheth and Shemite scholars, put together a program in the Florida school system, education school system. And a part of that program that they put together, that was put together with a group of Hamites, that mean black people, Japheth, that mean white people, Shemites, that mean Jewish people. They all had their input, they all voted, and they all agreed that many of the people that were slaves during the advent of slavery here in America benefited from the trades that they learned while they were slaves. Many of them, and I don't know if this is a part of what the black, white, and Jewish educators of Florida, Board of Education, Board of Directors, said as well, but they said that slavery had its benefits because people were able to, after slavery, use those trades, those skills to be able to earn a living. And one of the examples used by Governor Ron DeSantis was, for instance, a blacksmith who learned how to put shoes on horses after slavery, could go out and start his own business. And there were probably others. We also need to note that at the end of slavery, literally large swaths of land were given to slaves, 40 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, 400 acres. Many of the slaves became extremely land wealthy at the close of slavery. And some of those descendants of those slaves still own that land in Virginia and in Georgia. They still own that land. Their ancestors still own that land to this very day. Many learned banking skills. Many learned education and teaching skills. I want to say this as well, that the great race business, where the pinch-nosed Negro and a whole lot of other people are, especially the Camelback and Black Harris, are up in arms. Their hair is on fire, talking about how dare you say that people could learn a trade by being a slave. What a really, really dumb thing. But at any rate, I think beyond dumb is ignorant. I'll share this with you one more time. I learned how to preach in prison. That's why I learned. My first sermon was not in the First Baptist Church on Youth Day. My first sermon was to a bunch of black and white convicts and prison guards. I learned how to preach. I learned how to hone my skills of my voice, my techniques, my give and take. I learned how to do that in prison. So why is it that in some of the awful circumstances of life, such as slavery, we can't learn trade? Someone told me that experience is the best teacher. What you see in people like Kamala Harris is one of the biggest phonies I've ever seen on planet Earth. She's really running to be president, trying to run Joe Biden out of the presidency, and she wants to be president. But you know, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? And I ask you to curb your anger. Just listen to me. And then if you agree with me, help me. If you don't agree with me going about your business. But wouldn't you agree that many times it's our adversity, it's our difficulty, It's our suffering through cancer. It's our suffering through a bad marriage. It's our suffering from drug abuse. Wouldn't you agree? It's our suffering from difficult times. Wouldn't you agree that's the storms, including the slavery of our life, that we learn some of the best lessons? I want to tell you, my brother, I have never seen anybody as asinine, as ridiculous, as unconscionable as black people. Black people now up in arms about the statement about slavery could be productive in some degree. Everybody knows that it was cruel and brutal. Everybody knows that. But they're simply trying to look at, everybody knows about the bad, but what about the good? What about the good? Let me tell you something. I'm a Hamite, but I've been black all my life. I swear before God and anybody else that will listen. Now curb your anger. Curb your anger. Black people are the most racist, coupled with being the most ignorant people that ever walked upright on planet Earth. I ain't never seen nobody like them. That's why they rap. That's why they do. That's why they're good at sports, because they're not good at science. Listen, I don't know anybody who loves the black man. Now, he's a Hamite more than I do. I live here in Harlem. I wake up to his cussing and his rap music. I have to step over, well, I don't step over him, but I have to watch him sleeping. Nobody loves him more than I do. Now, you may not believe that. You may not believe that. But let me say this to you. These pinch nose pimps not jumping up and down about what the Board of Education has said about perhaps something productive came out of slavery, and they're trying to shoot that down. It goes against the teaching of the Bible. It just goes against common sense. We all know that in our adversities, experience is the best teacher. Oh, nobody wants to be in jail. Nobody wants to go through drug use. Nobody wants to go through a bad marriage. Nobody wants to go through cancer, but we learn how to pray. Somebody told me, I heard in the song, if we never had a problem, well, we could know that Jesus could solve them. I swear, I don't know if I can take living with these racist black people on television, these so-called professors, these racist black news commentators, these racist black ignorant, unconscionable politicians. I don't know if I can live much longer with such stupidity, the ignorance. Everybody knows that we can learn from adversity. Listen, here's the truth. I was talking the other day about that submersible that went down the other day near the Titanic, and all the nations from around the world were sending ships to try to help in the rescue if they could find rescue. The only nation that didn't send ships was the nations of Africa. Can I share something with you? Now, curb your anger. Curb your anger. You see all these pinch-nosed Negroes. You see all these Kamala Harrises. You see all these people. And by the way, I love my brother. God knows I love him. I give my life for him. I give my life for my black brother. Now, he ain't black. He's a Hamite. I have fed more than 1 million meals to him. I have housed more than 1,000 black men in this building. I have. Black men, black women, black children. I fed them. I have educated, me and Jesus. I've graduated more than 500 black students out of this building. I love them, and they love me, those that understand. I'm not saying this because I'm full of hate. Don't try to put that on me. I'm just telling you the truth. Black people are the most racist, ignorant, helpless people on the planet. Listen to this. I'm going to let you go. Black people don't send relief. They're the only ones that ask for it. That black people don't send relief. They don't have it. They don't, but everybody else, black people don't have, Africa, I should say, let me rephrase that. Africa does not send relief. They only receive it. Every other nation can give something. When the world is in trouble, the nations of Africa can't help. One final thing I think is important, if I can make this a final. The one thing that the black man, now I love him, and I want to ask you to curb your anger. The one thing he is good at, the way most of the money that comes into the black community comes in through his using the great race business. He has made race politics a cottage industry. He doesn't manufacture a car. He doesn't even manufacture a comb. No nation in Africa makes anything globally for the world. Doesn't make a telephone. He doesn't make an integrated system. He doesn't make a boat. He might make a few clothing here and there. But no, he doesn't make any watches or jewelry. Now, he does have gold and diamond, but he don't know what to do with it. I don't say that because I hate him. God knows I love him. I've been to Africa. I've been to South Africa. I've been to Liberia. I've been to Ethiopia. I've walked the barefoot streets of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. But he is about these black politicians, these so-called mayors of Houston, New York, Atlanta, and every place else, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and everywhere and in between are some of the sorriest, most unconscionable, most ignorant, race-baiting, pimping people on the planet. I tell you, what they do to black people, and now they're trying to rob the fact that my grandfather and my great-grands learned a trade while they were slaves and parlayed that trade into a business when slavery is over with. I learned how to preach in one of the racist prisons on planet Earth. They're in Jacksonville, Florida, or in, if you will, Rayford, Florida. That's where I learned how to preach. I came out of Florida a preacher. Were it not my going to prison, I'd be dead. I have learned so much through the bad things I've done, through the bad experiences I've had. They've taught me so many lessons. Well, if that's the case, slavery being one of the worst of bad things that ever happened to people could teach us the greatest of lessons. But no, these race baiters, these people, these black, if you will, so-called activists, all they want to do is just spitting in the white man's eye, you had us as slaves. Then the other thing is that they're in a great denial. They don't manufacture. They don't bring anything to the world. They love to live in the white man's hotels. They love to drive the white man's Mercedes-Benz, the white man's Rolls-Royce. They love to drive the white man's BMW. They love to live in the white man's neighborhood. They love to live in Bel Air. They love to live in Beverly Hills, but they don't have no Bel Air or Beverly Hills of their own. Remember that movie, Coming to America? Zamunda, ain't no black, that was one of the biggest lies ever told in the movie. Ain't no Zamunda in Africa. Ain't no well-developed, beautiful, peaceful African nation where they are builders and have done great things. Ain't no Zamunda. It's a lie. And then the insult to injury of that movie was the black prince said he couldn't find a woman in Africa, so he had to come to America, the place of slaves. He had to come to this place of slaves. Well, the slave that he married, the ancestor of the slave, that the so-called Prince of Zamunda, her mother and father and great-grandmother was a slave. That's a good product. You have to wonder what on earth is going. Why is that black people are so ignorant? Maybe the only thing they can do is play basketball, dance, and be slaves, because they're ignorant that you can't learn from a bad experience, that you can't prosper from going through difficult times, through trials and through storms, that somehow or another nothing good can come out of a storm, nothing good can come out of suffering. Nothing good can come out of Jerusalem. Nothing good can come out of Israel. And here they go and they get praised. They get paid big money. They go on television. They're in the media. They get sports contracts. Listen, I've said some things. Maybe they have angered you, but I've not lied to you. You know it's true. Black people have never come to the aid of any other, the nations of Africa have never come to the aid of any other world calamity, not even wars, not even World War I and World War II. Now, there were some great fighting forces in World War I and World War II that were so-called black, now they're Hamites. But black people, nations of Africa that have not been enslaved, have never come to the aid of a world calamity. They always receive aid. They always want the world to come and give and supply aid to them, but they've never come. Now, when the only thing they know how to do is play the race card, use the great race business, and be used and pimped by Democrats and liberals that are Japheth, that'll put them in, or Shemite for that matter, that'll put them in the office of a mayor, office of a congressman, office of a senator. And after that, they're worthless. They're worthless. But for them to deny the fact that some good things can come out of adverse situations in your life is ludicrous. It represents you should never, ever listen to any of the, especially that Camelback Harris, and then all of them, you know who they're all out there. They should never, anybody that is that in that much of denial of truth, that's ignorant, that you can't learn a trade while in prison. You can't learn a trade while the man's got you in slavery. You can't learn a trade. You can't learn a lesson while you're going through the worst crisis of your life. To deny that, to flat out get on television, get supported by CNN, get supported by the New York Times, for these liberal, Japheth people to come running to these black pinch-nosed liars and deniers, for them to come running to their aid to pimp and promote that you can't learn something in your adversity, in your difficult times, that you can't learn something is beyond ridiculous. It's beyond satanic. What I see going on there, and it's been going on for quite some time as black folk, not Hamites, and that's who they are, just keep getting worse. I do declare, this is so sick. And by the way, it appears that this Florida Board of Education, I'm going to let you listen to it, statements were not put together just by Japheth people or by the Klan. It's put together by a collection of scholars, and many of them were black or Hamite. Mr. Engineer, roll that clip.
In Florida, new plans from Governor Ron DeSantis' Board of Education to change the way students are taught about the history of slavery is drawing heavy backlash. Beginning in the fall, Florida public schools will follow a new social studies curriculum that teaches the, quote, benefits that slavery had for enslaved people. The outrageous changes prompting Vice President Harris to make an impromptu trip to the state on Friday, and she didn't hold back, blasting the new guidelines in an impassioned speech in Jacksonville. Let's bring in NBC's Ali Rafa. So, Ali, walk us through these controversial changes happening in Florida, and what's the reaction?
Yeah, Lindsay, well, civil rights activists, some students, parents, teachers are echoing that rebuke from Vice President Kamala Harris. But Governor DeSantis is continuing to justify and defend these new standards changes. But also, he's interestingly distancing himself from the backlash over them that's following him from Florida to the campaign trail.
The battle over Florida's new history curriculum.
They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us.
It's very thorough, very factual. Nobody's buying their nonsense anymore.
Going national. A White House official tells NBC News that Vice President Kamala Harris decided to go to Florida specifically to challenge its new standards for Black history education passed just days ago.
They dare to push propaganda to our children.
Critics are blasting the changes, pointing to lessons that teach middle...
You know, the hypocrisy, she just said, they dare to push propaganda. And the propaganda that she's referencing is that some acts of some activity of slavery was beneficial in terms of teaching a trade. She says that's propaganda, and that the Board of Education in Florida wishes to push that propaganda. But all over America, they're pushing gender, if you will, grooming in the schools to 4- and 5-year-olds. And she supports that. They're pushing anti-God, if you will, birth gender, choose your own gender, be a tranny. They're pushing that in the schools, and she and all these other pinch-nosed, hustling, unconscionable, deep down in the woods, ignorant, but they're on television. They get promoted by CNN. They get promoted by the New York Times. They are some of the most ignorant, and most of them need a haircut. Most of these Negroes just need a haircut and need to get some. It is sick. You would wonder how on earth did a group of people, and it's just black people, that can get that ignorant. And collectively, it is like the world is turned upside down. At the top of the scale of so-called black people's leadership, you got some of the most ignorant, lying, hustling, unconscionable, stupid people at the top. It is like all the stupidity of blackness has risen to the office of president, has risen to the office of Al Sharpton, has risen to the office of news commentator. All the stupidity, all of the ignorance, all of the perverts have risen to the top of black humanity. It is sick. Kamala Harris is saying that teaching that you could learn a trade as a slave, that is propaganda, that is evil, while at the same time agreeing to pushing the propaganda agenda grooming. I'm going to tell you something about black people. I've been black all my life. I've been black all my life. I'm a Hamite, but I've been black all my life. I swear it looks like every day the more ignorant, the more perverted, the more selfish, the more self-hating a black person, man or woman is, they get the spotlight of CNN, they get the spotlight of the New York Times, they get the spotlight of the governor's office, they get the spotlight of the mayor's office, and you have to be absolutely, if you got any sanity about you, you're not going to rise to it is like all the scum of black humanity has risen to the top of the water. All the scum floating on the top of black humanity, Kamala Harris and all the rest of them. And I'm not even sure she's black. But that's where we are. Go ahead, Mr. Engineer.
School students quote how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
This is unnecessary to debate whether enslaved people benefited from slavery. Are you kidding me?
Florida governor and 2024 GOP presidential candidate Ron DeSantis at a Friday campaign event in Utah justifying the changes.
They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
But also distancing himself from the backlash.
I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
The changes are partly a result of a law championed by DeSantis, known as the Stop Woke Act, intended to curtail liberal teachings in public schools. Some academics are defending the change.
And we had to write factual, objective African-American history standards. The commissioner said it covers the good, the bad, the ugly.
While others vow to stop such lessons from going national.
We cannot nationalize Mr. DeSantis' education curriculum.
And Lindsay, this is a fight that Biden world says they don't mind having. They are heavily leaning into this issue and other cultural flashpoints being embraced by Republicans, positioning themselves as the ones who can protect freedoms that they say are actively under attack, Lindsay.
I've been black all my life, and I want to tell you, the scum of the black nation, of black people, the scum, the worst of the worst of black humanity has risen to the top and now hold the office of mayor, governor, congressperson, senator, athlete, politician, if you will, entertainer, singer. The scum. It's the scum that's at the top. This scum that we call black leaders need to be at the very bottom of the water of the nation. And that which is now being, because it is scum, people like, and I say this not to be ugly or mean-spirited. If you don't agree with me, give me the constitutional right to speak my mind. Give me the liberty. I'm not advocating hurting anybody. I'm not advocating violence against anybody. I'm just giving you a historical truth that is agreed to by a lot of people that perhaps that you don't agree. Again, I tell you, there ain't nobody that loves the black man. I've been black all my life, more than I do. And what I'll do for him, I've fed him. I put over 1,000 of them under my roof, and I've taught him. I've helped him. I've graduated more than 500 of his children out of this building. Yes, I love him. But I have to tell you, what we see in leadership now, whether it's Cornel West or Al Sharpton, is nothing but vomit. It ain't nothing but vomit. All of them. All you see right here, the Van Jones of the world, the Eddie Glores, ain't nothing but vomit that has covered the waters. And because there's vomit mixed with scum that covers the water of the black nation, those that are underneath the so-called leadership of Al Sharpton and Eddie Glores and this scum and vomit, now the black nation can't see because sunlight can't shine through that scum. Sunlight can't shine through that vomit that's floating on the waters of the black nation of people. We're in deep trouble. We need to clean the scum. We need to clean the vomit, called Al Sharpton. We need to clean the vomit, called the mayors of these so-called black. We need to clean the vomit, and we might be able to see again. I want to ask you to help me. If you know I have spoken the truth, well, let me put it this way. If what I have said has angered you, it has angered you because it's true. It's angered you because you know it's true. You know it's true. You've gotten up in church and testified that when you were going through something, the Lord taught you how to pray. You've gotten up in church and sang the hymns of the church about going through the storms and that the Lord will get on the old ship of Zion. You've gotten up in church and you've read the stories about what the children of Israel went through. You've gotten up in church and testified that God is good. You've gotten up and testified that the Lord is your strength, your very strength. You've testified that yourself. Now you're going to let this scum, this vomit, tell you that you can't learn a trade while in slavery or going through your difficult time. You're going to let this vomit that we call black leadership and the support they get from these liberal, if you will, tabloids or whatever it is that they rags called the New York Times. You're going to let this vomit and scum defy what you testified to in church about how good God is and how you have beat the devil running and how you came out on the other end better than you were, that iron sharpens iron, and that your joy, your tears at night have turned into joy in the morning, yet you're going to let this scum, you're going to let this vomit called the mayor of the city, the mayor of Houston, the mayor of New York, the mayor of Chicago, the mayor or the senator or the congressman or the so-called black president or the movie stars or the double-jointed athlete spear chuckers like LeBron James and Steph Curry and all the rest. You're going to let this vomit and this scum, you're going to let that vomit and that scum say to you that you didn't beat the devil running. Say to you that weeping may endure for the night, but joy cometh in the morning. You're going to let this vomit and this scum say that you can't learn anything through adversity, that you can't learn anything as a slave. All you can do is be a slave. You're going to let this scum and this vomit say that to you. And now you're going to turn on the truth that delivered your grandfather. Black people were more prosperous in the first 50 years after slavery than they've ever been in the history of the world, ever. Because they learned a trade. They learned the insurance business. They learned how to sell. They learned how to cook. They learned how to clean. They learned how to build while being slaves. I'm going to ask you to help me. Maybe you're angry and you never would lift a hand to help me. That's cool. I'm good. But there are others out there. I've been telling this truth ever since you've been you keep listening to me and you know it's true. I've been telling this truth. That's all I do is just tell the truth. I've been telling this truth on black and white folk. It is true. It's God's truth. Why don't you help me? And if you don't want to help me, that's cool. I don't even want to use the word cool to make you think somehow I'm flippant or unconcerned, but I just thought I'd say it that way. It's okay. But I'm asking you to help me, because if you help me, you help yourself. We need to get this scum and vomit off of the nation of waters called black people so we can see the sunlight again, so we can see Jesus again. We need to move them. Need to move these mayors, move these politicians, need to move these athletes, need to move these rappers. We need to move them so we can see the sunlight again. And we can let righteousness roll down like mighty waters and truth like a mighty stream. But we got to get rid of this scum and this vomit. I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant.